Let's talk about something that nobody in sales wants to admit, which is you can't build a predictable business strictly on hype. You can build excitement and you can get fired up, but if you want real scalability, you have to build it on both data and systems because motivation gets you started, but data and systems is ultimately what gets you scaling. And look, we've all seen these guys like Andy Elliott. They're extremely high energy. They're always fired up. And, they're yelling on camera for social media, telling you to outwork everyone, which is great. The message can be great. But aside from him being on a shit ton of roids and having an absolutely masculine looking wife, this guy is a complete grifter. So with this, we're not going to follow these social media gimmicks because that's not how real B2B teams scale. Energy fades, but data and systems compound. And you can't simply scream your way to a consistent revenue through sales. You have to measure your way there. And here's where most sales teams mess up. They try to motivate their reps with contests, Slack messages, and hype calls, but they never build actual structure. And you can't fix a broken system with a ton of energy. If you're not tracking numbers, your dials, your show up rates, and your close rates, you're not managing performance. You're strictly guessing. And guessing is what gets you stuck. And this is where things really change. Motivation is obviously extremely external, it comes and goes, but data and systems is internal. It tells you the truth every single day. And when you track your numbers consistently, you stop managing feelings and you actually start to manage performance. And this is ultimately where you gain control. And look, I've seen this 100 times. The loudest and most fired up sales reps, a lot of times they're usually the least consistent. These are guys that, Monday comes around, they talk a big game, and then by Friday, their numbers are way low. They typically don't take calls past noon. A lot of the guys who are just more consistent, maybe they're a little bit more quiet, or they're just, typically always have a good amount of energy. They're the ones that are logging every single call, every single conversation, and they're actually following processes, which makes real killers because they're not relying on emotion and energy or caffeine drinks and a shit ton of coffee. They're simply just relying on data and processes. And with this, they're simply just measuring and they're not guessing anything. And this is the craziest part. Data actually creates motivation. When your reps can actually see their numbers every single day, they don't need a specific motivational speech because visibility is motivation. And when they know exactly where they stand, they start self correcting and they start chasing their own improvement and looking to get better every single day. So if you're a founder, stop trying to be a cheerleader. If you're a sales manager, stop trying to be the next Andy Elliott because you don't need to be the hype guy. Your job isn't to motivate, it's to manage data. And when your team sees the truth on paper, they actually hold themselves accountable. And that's when sales stops being emotional and it starts being a lot more predictable. So the key steps to implement are number one, you got to track KPIs daily. Number two, you got to post those numbers in your Slack channel for the whole team to see and for you to get visibility. And then three, you want to coach the bottom 20% weekly based on data, not emotion. And you don't need to give long motivational speeches anymore. You simply need to just show the numbers and the data will do the talking for you. Obviously, motivation doesn't hurt, but like I said, motivation is short and it comes and goes. You want people relying on systems and processes because if show rate is down, it's not because motivation is down, it's because someone is not following the exact process that should be taught, or if the system that is taught for the show up rates to improve is bad, you need a new system. Same thing with close rates. If close rates are down, there's a couple different things you can look at. You can look at show rates at the foundation, and then you can look at how the actual conversations are going. And if people are following the scripts and the frameworks for closers, then you clearly need to make changes in that script or framework. So very simple. Once you take motivation out of the calendar or out of the equation, you can actually get some clarity on what is missing and what's broken in your business. So, like I said previously, motivation is quick, it fades. Monday morning, it's very easy to get motivated. Maybe you wake up at 5 a.m. for the first time in 4 years, and then you have one shitty day and it completely collapses. But biggest thing is data and systems are internal and they compound. And if you're scaling a B2B company, you don't need more hype man. Really, you just need more revenue, and more revenue comes through dialed in systems and processes and data. Because at the end of the day, the truth always scales. So, this is exactly what I do for all of my sales teams inside my sales building academy, and we're building actual full stack sales systems, KPI dashboards, and accountability frameworks that are going to allow your team to scale to predictable revenue without a guy like Andy Elliott screaming at you and his tranny looking wife on stage with him as well. So if this is something that you're interested in, or you just want to go ahead and request more videos, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will talk to you more. Thanks.